this on?
Yes.
Good. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many of you in the morning. Hello to some of you that I am seeing here in the audience that I didn't have a chance to say hello to before. But anyway, we're very happy to have you here. And we have a lovely panel, distinguished as diplomats here in Cleveland. So I'm going to give you a very brief introduction, and then we will follow that with questions. And after we go through a round of various questions, we will be opening it up to questions from the audience. So we have Susanna Chicharuk, who is the Consul General of the Republic of Slovenia in Cleveland since 2024. She's a career diplomat. She has previously served in Slovenia's Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs in Ljubljana, in the United Nations, the European Union, and Vienna. She brings, obviously, a wealth of diplomatic experience to this conversation. Thank you for being here. And we have Cedric LaRouche, who is the Honorary Consul of France here in Cleveland. And we're grateful to him for his willingness, first of all, to step in sort of at the last moment, but also we're appreciative that he brings to us international engagement and also business here, and also the Franco-American ties in Cleveland. And then my colleague to the left for the Cleveland Council on World Affairs, Andrew Kovac. He's the Director of International Exchange Programs at the Cleveland Council on World Affairs. He's been with the Council since 2015 and has worked almost exclusively with the International Exchange Program. Many of you probably know him from contacts with our visitors who have come to Cleveland. He has also worked with the Cleveland refugee community, which adds another angle to his experience here in Cleveland. And finally, we have Sandra Morgan, who is the United Kingdom's Honorary Consul in Ohio. And she has been for more than 20 years as Honorary Consul, right? She has served as interim mayor of East Cleveland, and I'm sure you've heard her name a lot fairly recently. And previously directed external affairs and communications at Kent State University's College of Art and Sciences. Sandra brings deep expertise in diplomacy, governance, and civic leadership. So we will proceed to the questions. I will ask a few general questions and then some specific questions for all of you, right? So how can cities like Cleveland use their cultural diversity to become more effective players in diplomacy? I'll start with you.
Thank you. It took me a while to think about this question for different reasons. So for me, Cleveland is a very different posting from all the previous postings, because obviously the tasks we do here are very different from the big cities, but also because there is so much history here linked to Slovenia. I'm sure most of you know, but for those of you who don't, Cleveland is the biggest city outside of Slovenia. There were Slovenians coming here in the late 1800s, and that trend continued for 100 years. So the numerous Slovenian community here is the reason why we have a consulate general here, not the honorary consulate. And we are the only professional diplomatic representation in Cleveland and only one out of two in Ohio. And that speaks of the importance of the Slovenian community, but not only of the Slovenian community, but for a country of Slovenia, there are 1 million people, to still maintain a diplomatic post that can be so much more. Sometimes I show a level of frustration because I see the potential that could be so much more, but I feel it's difficult to break the silos, so maybe just we're not using the right channels, but I feel like we have so many great events, there is so much potential for the city of such size. It's not a big city, but it's a great city, and such a cultural diversity. If people who think the same, who have the same background, who have the same wishes for like the city to progress, to promote, to evolve, just to step in together. So my frustration is that I don't know how to do it, but if anybody has an idea how to do it, I would love to hear it. And we do do organize a lot of cultural events. We just yesterday had a great event, a photo exhibition with Elena Slovenian, who is here with us, at the Slovenian Museum and Archive. And that, for example, was a great opportunity where we wish we could have seen more people come and share the heritage of Cleveland that is inherently a city of immigrants from different regions. It always has been, and it looks like the trend continues. And just maybe to stress the importance of cultural diplomacy also for Slovenian foreign policy, to quote the Minister Fajon, this is our foreign minister, who recently said, cultural diplomacy is one of the most important instruments of foreign policy, a language of subtle communication and a means of preventing conflict. And I think this says a lot about the potential.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, very, very interesting questions. I think when I reflected on that, is I tried to find an analogy that can help us maybe grow here in Cleveland by witnessing what I've seen being here for 25 years. And it's true that there's a very strong international cultural engagement in the city. I think it's clear for many of our community or international community, and I think we can elevate that by taking that people engagement in each community to the business community aspect. So the analogy I'm going to bring this morning to a table is all the work that has been done with the cultural garden here in Cleveland. I think it's a fantastic and unique setup where on one avenue you have so many countries represented, so many individuals chipping in, volunteering for their time to represent their country, interact with each other. And we've seen that at the end of August when we all get together and march together in peace. I think the same type of structure could be imagined if we wanted to in Cleveland, because we have the base, because we have the energy of a different community here, where we can channel that energy in a business setup, an international corridor. Not a corridor dedicated to a specific industry, but really highlighting if we want to brand Cleveland as global, as an international corridor. So my reflection and my suggestion was to channel the energy we already have.
A lot of energy.
Yes.
Sandra, you can be next.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. From my perspective, and of course I represent the UK, but I've been a lifelong Clevelander as well. And, you know, I am the eternal optimist. I think that Northeast Ohio in general, and Cleveland in particular, is perfectly poised to lead diplomacy and diplomatic ideas and thoughts here in the state of Ohio, and to be leaders, maybe even in the Northeast, in our city that is our size. And I say that because I think that, quite honestly, in the state of Ohio, we are the most diverse population of the major cities. I will say the 3 Cs, you know, Youngstown, Akron, and that sort of thing. And we should have an outsized voice in diplomacy in our state. And that starts really in Columbus and influencing our leadership in Columbus from the governor's office down and the other offices to understand the importance of diplomacy to every aspect of life here in Ohio. Certainly from a business perspective, a cultural perspective, and even our outcomes in health and other areas. And if we can get our leadership in Columbus to understand how important it is, I think that we can also move them towards more influencing our national leadership in order to take another look at diplomacy, the role that it plays in our nation, and certainly then would reflect, I think, very well here. To your point, Cedric, business drives this nation. Small and medium businesses are the catalysts that grow this country. They provide most of the jobs, that sort of thing. And a lot of that work is globally focused. And so if we can help, again, our legislators understand the importance of not only international business, but the cultural aspects that come along with that, I think that will go a long way in moving the diplomatic needle, if you will, in Northeast Ohio.
Can I ask you, do you find the leadership in Ohio open to meeting with honorary consuls or with a consul from Slovenia, open to listening to you?
I think generally, yes, but it has to go beyond listening. I mean, they do a great job of hosting events and having us in Columbus and, having cookies and coffee and that sort of thing, and that's lovely. But, the rubber hits the road when we're talking about policy, right? And how we're going to affect policy to influence. I mean, we don't have any influence over tariffs, right? I mean, that's a national policy. But what can we do in the state of Ohio to make international businesses feel more welcome? What can we do to make international guests, people who come here to work, or, especially refugees and others, but, I'm talking in business terms, how do we help international businesses develop a stronghold here in Ohio, and how do we make their employees feel welcome in our state? And what are the policies that we bring forward in order to make that happen? And that's what I think what we really need to do. And in that regard, then it's our job to make sure that they understand what we need, where we're going, and how important global business is to the state of Ohio.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ambassador. Thank you, Global Cleveland. And it's great to be here at the library. This actually reminded me, I have a library book that was due this morning. So this was very convenient, actually, being here. But yeah, it's a really great question. And for my work on exchange programs at the Cleveland Council on World Affairs, for cultural diversity, I think about accessibility and making exchange programs accessible to a wide range of audiences. The exchange programs at the Cleveland Council on World Affairs, we aim to bring in a large swath of people from all walks of life, a lot of different family types, people from different backgrounds, people who have lived here all their life, and even immigrant newcomers to help welcome international visitors to Cleveland, whether it's through in a professional meeting or on a more kind of like person-to-person level, even just hosting some of our visitors in your home for dinners. The exchange program that CCWA primarily works on is a U.S. Department of State sponsored exchange called the International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP, that is the flagship program of the State Department's portfolio of exchanges for international professionals coming to Cleveland on a wide range of different topics to connect with their counterparts, connect with leaders here in Cleveland, and to connect with everyday Clevelanders. We try to bring in new folks all the time into this network to interact with IVLP participants or other visitors through our exchange programs. The international visitors through these programs are always super curious to understand what makes a city like Cleveland tick and who the people are here, and to really understand that this city is made up of people from all walks of life, including people from their own countries and from the diaspora communities that live here. And making those connections, I think, are always really special in terms of increasing the cultural diversity of our programs.
Okay, thank you. I probably should have asked this question earlier, but I think maybe there are people in the audience who don't understand what a consul does or what an honorary consul does. And could you just give us maybe a 1-minute summary of yours is a full-time job representing Slovenia, right? And tell us how you divide up your time.
Honestly, I do a lot of catering. No, that was a joke. So we do provide consular services to our citizens and people who, we have a lot of cases of US citizens who are interested in obtaining Canadian citizenship, so we do a lot of that, so that's classical consular tasks. And then our job is just to try to find opportunities for closer ties between Ohio and Slovenia when it comes to culture, business, education, all kinds of fields where cooperation among citizens, and I think that might be one of the following questions, like people-to-people contact, that we could build on those opportunity and through that help to maintain good relationship that then eventually reflect in good political relations. But it always starts with people-to-people.
Yeah, I think it's an important to go over the task here. It's a wide network, right, of responsibility in terms of diplomacy. Our role, and Salma, you would chip in, of course, about your perspective, but we're simply an extension of the general council, which is also an extension, of course, of the country. So what we provide here is a local connectivity to our, for me, the French resident here locally. But we also are here to create people-to-people connection to help, again, build and push what our country diplomacy wants to engage with in the United States. So we get briefed, and then we engage our network and we expand our network to make that possible.
Okay. Sandra?
Thank you. From the UK perspective, and I'm proud to say that the UK is one of the top trading partners for the state of Ohio, like France and a few other countries. But our roles are then slightly different from some of the other honorary consuls, because for me, my primary goal is to promote business. I report to a consul general in Chicago, where we have very specific goals that are laid out from the embassy and of course through the consul general's office, and we have, again, very strong business objectives. And so for me, I have three primary roles. Number one is to promote bilateral trade and foreign investment between the state of Ohio and the United Kingdom, and that is, business writ large. Number two is to promote cultural understanding. So a great example of that would be that next month, the Cleveland Browns will play football in London. All right, they'll play another U.S. team, but it's an opportunity that while we are exposing, certain aspects of U.S. culture and sport, that we will also piggyback business on that, and so they will have an understanding of the business of National Football League sports, but we will also send a team of economic development folks to the UK for a full week to meet with companies and discuss business opportunities and expose them to the state of Ohio. So a little bit of culture and business. On the other side, the Cleveland Orchestra frequently travels to Europe and into the UK every couple of years, and so we established a Friends of the Cleveland Orchestra group in London, again, to raise the profile of the Cleveland Orchestra, to build bridges between Ohio and the UK, and also, to allow them to have opportunities for fundraising and other things in the UK. And then last, but certainly not least, to protect His Majesty's citizens when they're in the great state of Ohio. So if they find themselves in hospital, in jail, or losing their passports or some such, then it's my role, to work with them in order to make everything right.
Thank you. All right, now a question for the four of you. What role do you see everyday citizens can play in fostering international relations? We'll start with you, Matt. I know you sort of focused on this, but anyway, go on.
It's a really great question because there's probably more that people can do than they even realize in terms of being involved with exchange programs or this concept of people-to-people diplomacy. Part of this is keeping an open mind to just carving out an hour to meet with visitors, maybe through some of our programs, maybe there's programs through some of the consuls here or honorary consuls, just as one example in a way that most Clevelanders get involved with our exchange work is through home hospitality dinners and just breaking bread with people from another country is really powerful. And I tell people that this can be as simple or as elaborate as you want to make it. Order some pizzas. It doesn't have to be rolling out the red carpet necessarily. A lot of our international visitors are really just curious, getting a slice of life of what ticks with Americans, in 2025, just to understand a little bit about like a Midwest city like Cleveland for a couple of hours. And I think a lot of folks realize that this is a lot more, this is easy, this is a lot more casual. We say words like diplomacy and ambassador, and it sounds like there's a lot of gravitas. But I think the really, one thing I learned doing this work for several years now is our international visitors are really down-to-earth people, a lot of times who are just curious and want to learn. And I'm really, grateful for a lot of our citizen diplomats, that's who we call our volunteers. Some of you are, in the room here, that also are equally as curious and just want to help welcome people. So I think the home hospitality dinners is one specific thing I wanted to mention in this regard.
And if I can add to this, I know that my experience when I met with groups that had been to the United States and came back in the International Visitor Leadership Program, the events with home hospitality maybe were on the top of the list of the things that they most appreciated. And here in Cleveland, I even had somebody that came for dinner, and they asked if they could have a better look at my kitchen. And I wasn't quite sure what this was all about, but it turns out they really wanted to look at the appliances and see how big they were. Okay, Susanna, same question.
So as I already said, there is no diplomacy without people. Now we are civil servants and we are here to serve the people and the community. And people are those who make the initial contact that you can build on. So it's the crucial importance of people-to-people contact. And people sometimes underestimate the power of connecting, of sharing ideas, because those ideas can eventually become a policy if the voice gets strong enough that influences the government to apply those ideas into policy. So I don't think we should underestimate the power of people, and we should start living that power. And for Slovenia, we do have a lot of, we do know the power of individuals, so we do have the so-called ambassadors of Slovenia, and probably in the US, the most known ambassador of Slovenia. So these are people who have achieved a certain level of proficiency in their career, and they're promoting a good image of Slovenia worldwide. So in the US, that's probably Luka Doncic, and in Cleveland, that's for sure George Zimmerman. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done. I think it's a common reflection of all of us, and I would say travel. I mean, that I know it takes a little bit of a budget and it takes some commitment, but when you're in a situation overseas, you have to engage fully. You got to fully embrace the experience. you're gonna by that situation challenged by activity that you're maybe not used to, and surrounded by other people with maybe a different mindset or different point of view that you're used to from your home city. So putting yourself out there, being hosted by a family, maybe in France or some other country, to really experience visiting museum or cities is a great starting point. But I think engaging at the individual level is really a go-to if you really want to embrace that experience. And in return, do the same thing for visitor abroad, hosting them in your house, having them participate to dinners or activities, or meet them at the museum, for example. It's a great place to also interact and share ideas in front of the beautiful art we have here in Cleveland. I think that's the level I would encourage people to go to. We have great range of international community events, so those are, of course, a go-to and an easy one, but go beyond. Go overseas, across the frontier, and see how it's like.
Thank you. I agree with everything that everyone has said on stage. You can literally explore the world right here in Northeast Ohio. There are myriad events and activities that are globally focused, that will give you a taste of another culture, another language, food, and that sort of thing without leaving the region. Travel is a marvelous way to expand your circle, expand your mind, quite honestly, and learn about other cultures. And it's fitting that we're in a library. How about you come to the library and check out a foreign newspaper or a foreign magazine, or learn about what's going on in other parts of the world. That's easy to do, and it will give you some insight before you go to some of these activities and events. But I'm going to say that first and foremost, and especially for younger people, go to the library and read a foreign magazine, read The Economist, even look at Vogue Italia or something. I mean, it will give you a different perspective on the world. And then that, along with so many of the wonderful activities that take place here in Northeast Ohio, will be, I think, really great. And to Andrew's point, I've been a host for those dinners for a number of years, and there's nothing more fun and gratifying than hosting a foreign visitor at your home, having a lovely dinner, lively conversation, inviting other people over to also experience that fun and that joy, and just getting to know each other. And you'd be surprised at how many friends you will make, lifelong friends, honestly, from other countries, and that really does help quite a lot.
Suzanne, how do you see smaller cities? How can consulates help smaller cities connect with countries, the countries that like Slovenia? How do they get something going?
Great question. I'm asking myself this every day. One would think that in a city that's way smaller than New York or Washington, we would have more opportunities for that, but I don't think that's always the case. So it takes a lot of persistence, a lot of determination, and good ideas. But when it comes to Cleveland, so as I already mentioned before, we do organize a lot of events, so you can either attend one of those dinners, library, or you can come to our events. So before I forget, please do follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We do post the events that we, our Slovenian community, is organizing here in Cleveland there regularly. Sandra also mentioned the Cleveland Orchestra, so this is one of the tangible results of our consulate being here. We expect the orchestra to perform in Slovenia in October next year, and that's going to be the first time Cleveland Orchestra coming to that part of Europe. They still think we're Eastern Europe, okay? So it's going to be first off, which I think is very exciting for them and also for our audience. We are also reporting, so the Slovenian Consul General here in Ohio is the reporting entity for the meeting of Consul Generals of the EU countries. There is a EU delegation hosts monthly meetings, and we report on Ohio since we are the only ones here, so we are the eyes and the ears also for the EU on what's going on in Ohio. And Slovenia also does financially support the events of Slovenian community here. So we do contribute to Cleveland's public life and cultural diversity, also financially, not just through our rhetoric and our actions.
Cedric, you've worked also a lot in business development here in the area. How do you see that fitting into the whole picture of local diplomacy with France?
Yeah, I think, reflecting on this, I think we need to do a better job, and it comes, start with me, but to really not silo any international activities and keep it on its own. I think to really have a greater impact, here locally in Cleveland or at the state level, it needs to be those whose work, in that case maybe thinking about business activity, trade and so on, should be included in the conversation overall of the benefit of international immigration, international investment and so on. I think we need to have a better global view, to have a better branding, how positive this is for a community. Because even on the business side, if I just zoom in, there's already silos. When you look about trade, this is not the same folks that talked about import or helping companies to exports. If you talked about foreign direct investment, and it's going to be another entity. If you talk about merger and acquisition, which going to boost the local economy by helping an existing American company to grow and go beyond, right? This in some cases it's not taking consideration in terms of impact in the region. So within those different activities, I think what we need to bring in is all of the above. On the business side, do a better job at consolidating the overall impact in international investment, time, and people. And I think we need to connect that to the cultural aspect, to really have a full picture that this is not, obviously unbiased, but I feel that this is not really an option in the sense that we don't need international as a city, as people. It has such a broad impact on everything we do, culturally or in business, but I think we need to broaden the message. So that's what I'm doing today.
Thank you. Sandra, can you think of examples where the local conditions have had a role in affecting relations or in helping create policy, international policy?
Let's see.
Do you have a reporting role, for one thing? Do you report on local conditions?
Well, of course, yes.
To whom do you report?
I report to Chicago, and then ultimately I report to the embassy. And I've even written a briefing, which is a big honor, by the way, for 10 Downing Street. And so, yes, local conditions that would impact policy many times have to do, well, for me, again, with business, but also with politics, right? And so, every year, and particularly during a presidential election, there's a lot to report on. You want to know, what the pulse of Ohio is, what's going on. And for a number of years, we were considered, a swing state, and so there was a lot a lot to report on. And so, I guess to your point, understanding the various areas of the state, the various regions of the state of Ohio, understanding, where those people are, what their hot topics and those issues are, would have a real effect on British policy consideration and the way that the embassy, in particular, would approach the regions. And so, I guess one thing that we were talking about just recently was the absolute development that's happening in the center of the state. Remember, Intel Intel is building there, and they have a commitment out through 2030 and beyond, of course, for creating a business. And a number of British companies have come to Ohio in order to serve as as suppliers to Intel and that sort of thing. And so, there's a lot of consideration for those companies and where they will locate and what kind of tax considerations they'll get and that sort of thing. That's on the Ohio side. On the British side, they are concerned about these companies, coming here, becoming embedded, expanding, potentially, I won't say sending money back to the UK, but certainly raising shareholder value in the UK. Or maybe another example would be, let me just pop it out of my mind. So never mind that example. But things of that nature, really just kind of the political temperature here in Ohio and how that will affect things, in Washington and then ultimately in the UK.
Andrew, can you think of any examples where exchanges have led to longer-term relationships?
Yeah, definitely. Anecdotally, quite a few through our citizen diplomat volunteers. Thinking like a little bit bigger picture, these are public diplomacy initiatives. So this means engaging international audiences through a wide range of methods and by different actors. First and foremost, that's through the government or nation states, but then this is a panel on subnational diplomacy. There's a lot of individuals, like our, the consuls and honorary consuls on this panel who are involved in these efforts in terms of making relationships happen. Sometimes it's difficult to quantify, the longer term, diplomatic impact of these programs. Looking at first, like the Cleveland community and what I've seen through our exchange programs and the connections that have been made, sometimes it's just as informal as people who have hosted our visitors for dinner have stayed in touch over WhatsApp, and then they travel to that country years later and they're able to reconnect. They have a friend, in that other country. Sometimes we are able to point to more tangible impacts and longer-term connections that have taken place. Through one of our fellowship programs about 8 or 9 years ago, one of the business professionals through this fellowship program ended up getting a visa to stay in the U.S. and to actually be employed at the organization that hosted him locally here in Cleveland. Is just one example. Looking at kind of bigger picture with exchange programs and just speaking about the State Department's IVLP, that International Visitor Leadership Program exchange that I mentioned earlier. It's a really successful program in that over 600 heads of state had previously been part of an IVLP exchange, throughout the 85-year history of this program. So people who are in Cleveland today through this program, maybe there's a small chance that they go on to actually be a head of state. One name that maybe some people would recognize would be Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand was a participant through the IVLP exchange. I don't know if she came to Cleveland on this program, but just to give one name. And these exchanges shape the worldview of these future leaders and allow them to better understand the complex nature of the U.S. and to better understand cities like Cleveland and to see that the U.S. is not a monolith by any means, and that maybe their country's foreign policy should think a little bit more about the local impacts here in the U.S., looking beyond just the headlines or what's happening at the nation-state level. If I can say just one other thing I wanted to mention just on the impact is our umbrella organization based in Washington, D.C. called Global Ties US. They've done a community impact survey, and just one number in that survey, I was just looking this up the other day from the most recent survey from citizen diplomats or people that interact with exchange programs at the community level, is about 80% see that these exchange programs enhance the image of the U.S. and of their communities to an international audience. So it's tough to quantify some of the longer term impacts where these programs will lead, but I thought that was just one really, really nice number to just add a little bit of color to the impact.
Thank you very much. Before we go, we're about to go into the Q&A, but I think people don't realize how expensive it is to advertise anything here in Cleveland. And I want to give you a chance to at least tell the audience how best to follow your activities here in Cleveland.
Again, Slovenian Consul General in Cleveland, Facebook, Instagram, and we also have a webpage. And then through our Facebook page, you can see our Slovenian community institutions. We post regular monthly calendar events.
Yeah, I think the best thing is to follow me on LinkedIn. I have 2 volunteer positions, one at the Honorary Consul, but also another one at the French American Chamber of Commerce. So I'm the conduit to this. And you can, of course, subscribe to the newsletter of the French American Chamber of Commerce on our website. Thank you.
Please visit ccwa.org to learn more about our programs, the exchange programs, becoming a citizen diplomat host. The sign up is very easy, but learn about some of our other programs. We bring in speakers to talk to the Cleveland community about a wide range of foreign policy topics. Our first public event is actually next week on the Middle East. One really great thing about these speaker programs is they are free for students to attend. I know there's a lot of students, it looks like, in the audience, so I definitely encourage you to go to our website and sign up for free for some of our upcoming speaker events this fall.
Sound good?
Thank you. So I'm going to say that locally, you can look at the British American Chamber of Commerce website, which is baccohio.org. You can follow more broad programming at www.gov.uk. And you can also follow me directly on LinkedIn, and that's Sandra Morgan. Easy to find.
Let's give our panel and moderator a strong round of applause.